Oops. There we go.
Well, that didn't look right. Hello,
Oopsie
everybody.
doopsie.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday afternoon.
It is. It's Friday. It's past 4 o'clock again. Sorry, never mind. Welcome, one and all. Welcome. We are back this Friday afternoon to bring you spiritual upliftment, contact, community, discussion, debate, chat, whatever you want. Good afternoon, Mr. Reverend Tony. How are you?
I'm very well, Reverend Nick. Very well. It seems like a long time ago we did this. I don't know why. It's only a week.
I know. It really is. It really
Oh,
is.
this week
But
seems to have been very strange. The energy has been very strange.
yes, well, to be fair, it really has been very strange in many and differing and various ways, of course.
Of course.
But we continue, we bring upliftment, we keep each other up. Yes.
In the mug, Kaza.
I'm gonna say it's just that I ran out of glasses. I've been collecting them on the desk, and I thought it was time to clear up, but never cleaned them in time because the dishwasher didn't do it quickly enough. So yes, it still is my favourite beverage, just in a different container. It's almost a spiritual feeling there, really, isn't it? You know, no matter what the container looks like, it's still the same thing inside. I
wonder. Me too, Claire. Lilica. Coffee.
Absolutely. But there we are. So, Tony, how have you been and what have you been up to?
We've been incredibly busy. We've been sorting a lot of stuff out for the Rainbow Project. We've been doing a lot of outreach work with different communities. So a lot of, when you seem to have been putting a lot of stuff out there and then all of a sudden it all comes to fruition and it gets really busy really quickly. We've been a bit like that.
Yeah.
How have you been, sir?
Well, busy, yes. I apologise for the garishness of my cans. You know, everyone can see my cans today because I run the battery down on the other set, so they're a little bit more standout than normal. So, yeah, that's how busy I've been. But, of course, there's been a lot going on in Littleport, the ISA, the world. It is obviously with sadness to those that follow the two Revs, but obviously not always the same groupings follow the same different broadcasts on everything that I do. But at Littleport and indeed the ISA, the passing to spirit of Reverend Allen last weekend was, I'm going to put it in patent human terms, a hell of a blow to everyone, his family, his friends, to Littleport. You know, even though he lived up in Cleethorpes, he was still very much part of the family because he'd come on when he was well every week and do a reading and still come down once a month to do the White Feather Drum Healing Circle. So he was still, even though he was 3 hours away, very much involved and part of that family and part of that community. And I know he didn't do online that much because he, you know, I'll never forget when he come on to do the reading and he says, I'm not going to be able to do it next week because I'm staying with somebody, and can I get their internet to work on my laptop? Can I, buggery? You know, so he was active online, but not say as much as other people. So, but he still managed to pull his network together to do his readings, and he is and always was and always will be a true and dear friend. And his work was just amazing. The stuff that he did and influenced me personally was huge, and I cannot understate it enough. I know I might have ordained him, but when it came to creating the Independent Spiritualists Alliance, he was a driving force, along with yourself and Barbara and Jeanette, to get it off the ground, and in all of your words, just get on with it, Nick. You know, come on, we're here, let's do it. And
Yeah.
was very much part of that process. So he will always have a legacy, not just with the Drum Healing Circle and at Littleport, but the Independent Spiritualists Alliance itself. You know,
Absolutely.
he was and is a stunning exponent of this way of life, and indeed bringing different ways of life together. His interest in Native American tradition, hugely part of him. I don't think anybody ever knew him and didn't see him in that orange hoodie with the depiction on. That was as much a part of him as his nose was, you know. So he has the Native American tradition in his heart, so it will always be there, just glowing much brighter. So thank you to everyone who came and supported last night, online, in person. A huge well done to the Drum Circle for what they did, and a huge well done actually to Lisa Snowflake Checkley, who I know is watching. Your demonstration was amazing, and you know, you didn't give yourself as much credit as everyone else did, as always. But a fitting tribute last night for everyone involved. Everyone played their part in that balance that we always seek in a community and in a church and in a group. And I know he would have been proud of each and every one of you. So thank you.
Yeah. He's
Alan.
It was 1 in a million, Reverend Alan.
I've got to say, of all the comments that I've heard over the last week, Paul Bannister gave me a call and he said, in a world where it seems dark, and sometimes even in spiritualism, it can seem quite dark, he was a light that shone brightly. And I thought that was a beautiful and fitting tribute to a mate. So
absolutely.
Cheers, Al.
Well said. Well said. But it's so true. It's so true. I mean, when we started the group in Thurcroft and Jean was running it, Alan came up. It came all the way up to Rotherham to just support. I mean,
yeah,
you know, amazing guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had better say hello to our friends online. Starting right up at the beginning, of course, long before we even switched on the computer, let alone, you know, went live. Kaz is in the house. She says waiting patiently. But if you follow the conversation, the patience was wearing thin.
It was, yeah. Yeah, and Dawny joined in as well. Hi, Dawny.
I did try and let them know that we were there. You know, I will say I did. You know, let's jump through the conversation. It goes because there was quite a long conversation about computers, but I'll see what I can work out for you on that other one. So there's Daryl. Yeah. Who's this guy, eh?
I don't know who he is. He pops up all the time, though. Then, yeah.
Absolutely. Good afternoon to Christine Davis. Hello, darling.
Hello, Cherry Ann. Bonjour.
And Mario, welcome.
Yep, and I'm guessing T&E, Terry and Eunice.
Tony, even. You can't even remember your own name there. Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
It's one of them days, isn't it? Hi, Tony Eunice. And Claire Lilica, good to see you, darling.
Yep. Hope you're having another coffee.
Absolutely. Now, I will just bring this up with the right way round again for you. Just we listen.
We do, bless. And Mama Brown. Hello, Mama Brown.
Hi, Mother. And Lisa, there you see, I said I knew she was here because I'd seen her. Hello, Lisa. Good to see you.
Yeah.
And jump, click one click. There we go.
Justine. Welcome, Justine.
And Julie Caswell. Hello to Julie Caswell. Good to see you, my darling.
Yeah.
And
Claire Chapman.
Claire Chapman. Good to see. Loves your nails.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
they
you.
definitely.
The match.
Sorry. The collar matches the fingers. Be careful how you say that one.
Yeah.
Could get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
And of course, hello to everyone who has come on and who isn't said hello, because we've said hello to everyone who's commented. But I know that there are other people watching who don't always comment. That's fine. You're allowed to. To the left, to the left,
absolutely,
to the left, to the left. But good to see you all. And of course, a reminder, this is your show, your conversation. You lead the debate. So tell us what we're talking about. We've obviously touched on that connectiveness with different other ways of life. Hello to Claire Island. Good to see you.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello. But yeah, what is it you want to talk about? What is it that you want to discuss? What topics are burning in your mind that you'd like to talk about and see the debate evolve, and what everyone's opinions are? Because that is what we are here for at the end of the day. And I am aware from the comments, yes, I am at a slightly different angle today, so you can see my blue angel for a change. And there'll be something. There is a gap there deliberately on that shelf. There will be something going up there during the week, ready for next week. But I'm not saying anything yet. But there's going to be something new to you, but not for me up here in that gap. Hello to Sue Parry. Good afternoon and welcome to you.
Yes, welcome. Always welcome. Like Nick said, this is your debate, so whatever's on your mind,
absolutely. And it doesn't have to be clean. Look at that. I just pop up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna argue with that, but I can't. It's good because I can't move around and you can see the untidiness today. So absolutely. But yes, for anyone who, whilst we are just waiting for the topic of the day, it is a question just to get the ball rolling on a bit of an uplifting and slightly different, because we can be many different people. My question is, how do I get the icons on my desktop? They are all along the bottom. New laptop, no clue. First question, is it a Mac or is it a Windows? You can right click, not on the items on the actual bottom. When they're on the bottom, you can't get a right click menu that says show on desktop anymore, but you can actually go onto the icons in the window, in the list of apps. If you right click on that, you should be able to go to more and then send to desktop. But it depends on which actual which make and model you've got, and whether it's Windows 10, 11, or all of the other, because they're all different. It makes life. Do you know, this is a very spiritual thing, though. We do like to make things difficult. We do like to make things more complicated than they have been by constantly changing things.
Exactly. GMA.
But there we go. So, what's been going in your world, and what do you want to talk about? Everyone's been very shy and quiet today.
They are.
That question from Cousin Ruth is a good one. Kaza, I've got a Windows 11 tablet downstairs, so I'll have a look. Um, so, question from cousin Ruth. What's the difference in hearing voices and hearing voices? You can even hear the tone in it because you've heard that question so many times as a medium. What is the difference in hearing voices and hearing voices? Reverend Tony, your thoughts?
That's a very interesting question, and it's not actually something I've thought about, but when I hear spirit, it's more of a inner voice, if that makes sense. It's an inner
Yes.
voice. It's not like, I mean, I've never heard voices in my head like the typical, drama show thing where, having a psychotic break, hearing voices. But it's more of an inner voice and a calming voice and there's a feeling that goes with it, that it's not just the hearing the voice, it's the feeling that you get with it. That is different for me. When people say, "Oh, I have that inner voice telling me that I'm not good enough," or something, if you're having a down moment or a down day with depression or something, that's more of a feeling, not a voice, where the voices from spirit are distinct voices.
Absolutely.
There is that spiritual feeling that goes alongside it.
Absolutely, yes, I totally agree with you. And Sarah McGeechee has said hearing voices is more of an inner knowing. Eunice, of course, knowing. I can hear us. I can actually see her leaning in and saying, hello to Sarah, to John Parry, and to Lee Pywell, by the way. Welcome. And yeah, it's funny you should say it's not something you thought about, but you still kind of know when you're prompted because of the experiences that you feel. And when you analyze that experience that you have, you find that way of explaining it. When I developed I had to go through that process when I developed the Way of the Candle workshop. I did book upcoming, because I've turned it into a book as well. I always remember what Lynn used to say to me is that inner voice of what you hear from the spirit will very often sound like you, but not sound like you, because it's in the same voice, that inner voice of your own thoughts, but with this awareing difference. It's your own voice, but with different words and different tone and different inflection, much in the same way as I described trance. And it's a voice you hear, not here, but kind of here. And it's because it's all thought projection, it's all thought transference. When it comes to mental mediumship, at the very least, it's this, and it is that inner knowing of a voice that is in the same style and tone as a train of thought, as your own thoughts. But here we go. It's the same voice, but different tones, being you and knowing it's not your vocabulary. Absolutely, because it's like my favorite comment from people in circle is, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And it's when you hear spirit, hearing within the mind's eye, hearing within the mind's ear, and that knowing of those words coming through, it is very much that difference in vocabulary. And you sit there and you think, where'd that come from? Oh, hang on a minute, I know. And you get used to that.
Dorney's point's really good as well. That sort of goes on from what I was saying about that. There's that feeling around it as well. You feel them with you. And it's I always find that I never just get clairaudience or clairvoyance, or it's always a mixture of different connections for me.
Yes. Yes, absolutely, and I totally agree with you. And it's those different sets, because so long as we are not in a physical position where any of our senses are not working, or in any way degrading with the passage of time, we don't just sit and see, we don't just sit and hear, we don't just sit and speak. We use all of our senses at once to build up that bigger picture. And exactly what you've just said, you feel them, you become aware. And it is that word awareness, I think, is, if we used awareness more in life as well as in spirit, the work would be very, very unbound. And it's the combination of all of the above that help build up that image. But for the purposes and specificness of Cousin Ruth's question, we often, within the bounds of mental mediumship, come in thinking we're going to hear a voice just like it's down the hallway, and shouting at us, and hear it with our physical ears. Whilst that is possible, whilst that can and does happen, for the bounds of mental mediumship, it's that inner ear, that inner. And we talk about chakras all the time. This is the communication chakra, and that's where I hear that voice. And there's no surprise there. And mediums, they'll sit and talk about, Lynn was terrible for this, spirit coming through, and you wave your hand around this area. Yeah. And that's where the communication chakra is. And I think it's really, really important to specify, as anyone who is doing the work, developing themselves or each other, is to always distinguish that difference between a physical sound and an inner hearing and knowing. And the spirit senses are non-physical. That's why they're spirit senses. And whilst it is possible and does happen, most of us who work on a mental mediumship level will have this, it's kind of like, I always use that acetate overview. When the likes of us were at school, we had these huge projectors with these clear plastic sheets with the writing in on pen, and it would be projected against the wall. If someone walked in front of that text that's been projected onto the wall, it will still be there, but it will be wrapped around us and our form. And it's very much in the same way for all of the spirit senses, with the exception sometimes of the feeling those physical pains. They will stick a pin in us where we need to feel a sharp stabbing pain or a dull ache. Other than that, all of them are very much that acetate over projection. And I do want to, before I scroll down and see the responses and the comments to that, I just want to star Kaz's, because it's of a question all of its own. Dawny says, that is where I feel spirit arrive and they make their entrance. I get the breeze feeling along the back of the, and there we go again. It's that location again, isn't it?
It is.
Lisa says, when I hear spirit, it's in my head, but just above my ear. When I'm working psychically, I just know stuff without hearing words in my head. And once again, that's really, really a good point. Psychic stuff, you just know, but you get other input when it's spirit, which is, again, this is why they brought in claircognizance as a real thing, as there is so many that just have a clear knowing and literally hear things. Sarah, I love you. We do not speak about claircognizance enough. That clear knowing, it is a combination and overlooking of all of the above. And so much more besides. When you first get claircognizance, that's when you start questioning it, because it's kind of like this instant in your brain. But when you get used to it and when you trust it, it actually elevates the work.
It's absolutely amazing if you can work that way. It really is, because so many times I'll start off with a clairaudience or a clairvoyance, and then I find myself just talking and talking and talking, and I'm thinking, where's this coming from? And
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
coming out of me.
absolutely. No, wrist slapping time, cousin. I can see you're laughing, so you're right. But yeah, I've got to say this is actually a really important comment, because there are many people who have been accused of being nuts because they're hearing voices, when actually if they'd have sat and understood the principles and development of mediumship, that needn't necessarily have been. I'm not going to say that it's always the case, because it's not. We do know that there are physiological and psychological conditions that can make you hear voices, absolutely. But many people would have been lumped. Gotta say, I was one of them. I was one of them. I was under the doctor. I was, accused of being nuts. But I've made a life out of being nuts, if that's the case. And none of the voices that I hear speak of anything negative. They're always about wanting to bring us up, bring us upliftment, bring us joy, compassion, and love. And I think that's a very important, clear distinction. These voices from spirit encourage uplift, yes, caution, but upliftment, not negativity, because that is very much a very clear sign of whether it is that input from spirit or input from yourself on that negative level. Yeah, I'm with you. Recently, so I understand the frustration and the concerns. Eunice, yes. How many people say I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up? Exactly, because that is where that connection comes from basically from there down to there. In historic imagery, actually, I'm sure you've seen a picture, this cable plugged into the back of a glowing body that's connected to the physical body as well, that spirit connection, it goes off to spirit as well. So that is always been where it comes through. Your thoughts on this? Claircognizance allows my mediumship to flow. When I allow my mind to get involved, I get it wrong, guaranteed. But when I just allow my clear knowing to flow, it flows well and is correct. Why do you think that is, Tony? Is it just trust, or is it something else?
I think it's trust. A huge part of it is trust. Because for me, that is the hardest part of mediumship to learn, is the trust in spirit. Because and she's absolutely right that Sarah, I completely agree with you that once you start thinking, that's when you hit trouble.
Yes.
Because the first thought's spirit, the second thought is you. Every time. The first thing in your head is from spirit, the second thing is you overthinking it, and it's not yours to think on. And it's my pet peeve when you're in a circle and people will say, I have got something, but I'm working with it. No, don't work with it. It's not yours to work with. It's spirit. Just get up and give it. And
Brilliant.
if people stand up and give what they're getting, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's overthinking that. And that's the human part of it. Because, and the other thing I think it is, Nick, is something will happen, something will come into your mind, into your brain, into your hearing, vision, whatever, and it'll be nonsense to you. So you'll want to think about it and want to process it. No, it doesn't have to make sense to you. It needs to make sense to the recipient. That's all that's important. Whether you understand it or not is irrelevant. And that's that. We're all nosy. I know we're nosy, and we all want to understand.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like nothing to do with us. Just give it off. And that's what's important. So, Sarah, I absolutely agree. Just trust spirit and go with what you've got, and you won't go wrong.
And that really does sum up. For a long time I trusted spirit but doubted myself, so I believe you need to trust yourself as much. You really do. Julie says, I get when spirit talking like a conversation in my head, in my voice. I once heard a different voice say hello that came from the middle of my head. I mainly don't hear and just start speaking, and it was the first time I'd heard it. Yeah, absolutely. As you develop and grow, so does your contact with spirit, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And don't ever do what I do and think, oh, I'm enjoying this way of working. I'm really enjoying it. It's really good. And because every time I've said that, spirit go, yeah, you're getting comfortable, then we're going to shift things around. And something will change. And or a different guide will start to build, and it gets you really off balance a little bit, because it's like, whoa, what's happening? I don't understand this. I don't feel this. What's going on? Oh, yeah. Just bear with me 1 second.
You're all right. Whilst you're sorting out your animals. I'm on my own again. Lisa says you're absolutely right. Say it. It is like catchphrase. Say what you see. Absolutely, yes. Say what you see. Cherry, yeah, I thought you might say that. It is very much about that trust in the information. Now, I want to come to what Sarah said. I don't understand people sitting with something and then building on. It doesn't happen that way for me. I will go to someone and ask for someone to come through for them. And this comes very much down to your own personal attitudes, feelings, ways of interacting with others, but also the way we are developed. We are very influenced by those who develop us in the way we work and the way we grow. And so it will, and this is where we hit a jump off point within this way of life. We cannot understand it. We can just work our own way, as you do. There will, however, be parts of this way of life that will turn, and I've heard it. You must not work like that. You must work like this. You are doing it wrong. And I think that is where we as a way of life fall down. And, you know, there are many. I work the same way as you, Sarah. I absolutely do. And so I understand it. You can look at it and you think, well, why do you do it like that? But there is a difference between not understanding it and not working that way to then becoming a developer of people and saying, don't work that way. The way I say is, I'll give you some information. This is how it works for me. But if you work in a slightly different way, absolutely work your own way, because you've got to, and I'm sure Sarah will agree with that, you have got to work the way that resonates with you. You have got to work the way that is within you, because spirit know you better than any mentor or teacher sitting in a chair in front of you, and I include myself in that. Spirit know which is going to work for you, and it's very telling of your personality that you are very open to building a conversation. You are someone who would build a conversation with an individual and go up to a stranger and say, hello, who are you? Talk to me, rather than sitting back and thinking, you know, I want to know a little bit I want to hear you speak before I start engaging with you. And it's very telling from that statement that would be more your personality. And I haven't scrolled down deliberately to see if you've responded to that yet. And no, I'm with you. And you know, sometimes it's frustrating that we can't do it the same way as other people, but then embrace who you are and your personality and the way you work, because it is you, and you are unique and different and special, and will reach people that other people who work like that wouldn't necessarily reach. And the same flips across with that you are absolutely going to find people that wouldn't be able to resonate with that way of working, but would find it easy with other people. The comments are coming in thick and fast, and I'm struggling to keep up.
Not the just,
but
yeah.
Mary Workman says, be true to yourself. Everybody is totally different. And absolutely. I'm with you, Sarah. I get that sentiment completely. Tim is in the building. Can you imagine how boring mediumship would be if it were all exact? There'd be no point seeing different mediums. Absolutely. Yes, Tim. There'd be no point going to different mediums if we all work the same way.
That's the thing. I mean, Michael raised an interesting point once to me. He said, so if you prove life is eternal as a medium, and somebody comes to church for the first time, and you prove to them that their Auntie Gladys is alive and well and on the other side, why would they come back to church? Because everybody's different. And then you get beyond the everybody's here for a message that I hear so many church people saying these days, oh, we don't want any of that philosophy and stuff. Everybody's here for the message. They're not. They're here for the community, for the upliftment, for the same reason people go to any other church, for that connectedness to something other, which is what's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, hi, Minty May. Just to comment.
Hello, matey. Good to see you, bud. Welcome. But yeah, it is all about that develop. It is totally all about that individuality and that unity that can be found through that individuality. And once again, to back up what you said, there will be different mediums working in different ways, and we might sit there and think, oh, I wish I understood that, and I do all the time. But what you give as a medium will be one aspect of that person and that personality. Another medium will bring more, and it builds up that trust in spirit. It builds up that way of working, and you can sit there as a congregation member or someone watching the demonstrations week in, week out from different mediums, and I like that way of working. I want to explore that, and I want to learn about that, and I want to work like that, not exactly the same as that, but I want to work like that. And it helps you develop your personal style of mediumship. It helps build up that image of spirit for all watching in different ways, and it keeps it fresh and interesting. As well.
It is. I mean, I can't imagine anything worse than us all going up on rostrum wearing a grey suit, grey shirt, grey tie, grey skirt, whatever, and just regurgitating the same 5 bits of information about no. And exactly, Eunice. Exactly. That's why we develop the next generation of mediums. We don't teach them our ways. We see what's there and enhance it and bring it forward and develop that connection to the spirit world. And that's all we can do. It's up to everybody else to work out how they will work with spirit and what evidence they're looking for from the world of spirit.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, I was waiting to see if Sarah commented. I can see why it took a little bit longer this time. Wonderful. People can go to loads of mediums to bring through the same person, but we'll get a different part of that person through different people. I might bring through their personality. You might bring through their love of horses. Another might bring through about their job, etc. It all depends on what's in. Thank you, my lovely. Our memory banks, because as a spirit person in the world of spirit through trance today said to me, man only knows what man only knows, and we have to build our experience memory bank to be able to understand and interpret what's coming through to us. And if we don't understand a concept or a situation or an emotion, we ain't going to be able to emote that.
No.
But spirit will use somebody else who has to do it. And so the more, and this is, people say to me, I very rarely find a medium who hasn't suffered. And I think one of the reasons why people who suffer become mediums is because, and no, I swapped that paradigm there. People who suffer become mediums is to make use and bring some kind of positivity to that experience. Because if we understand it, we can share it and also help in some way by sharing that experience and to know that you're not on your own. And I think it all depends on what's in our memory banks, because spirit can only use what we can understand.
Perfectly said. And it's something I've always said is that I can give certain things off a rostrum that another medium might not be able to, because they are experiences I have gone through and I've come out of the other end of it. So I know how to give that, and I know how people I would want somebody to give that information to me, so you give it with a bit of sensitivity and a bit of empathy. And I will always say, when I'm giving off a message, I've lost someone, you've lost someone, but my experience of grief is completely different to your experience of grief. So we can never say, I know how you feel, because I don't know how you feel, but I have gone through loss and I understand the feeling of loss and I can give that. So it is something that spirit will find the right person to give that message, because they want to give it to somebody who will give it in a understanding, in a feeling way, and in a kind way.
Yeah.
So what a medium's lived experience is very, very important.
And on that note, I think it's an excellent jump off point for a couple of starred comments.
Yes, please.
That I've had. And the reason I say a couple of starred comments, because there was one that we had very early on that I'd like to go back to, but also there's kind of like a follow up to it that's come through very recently. My drain is getting blocked up again, back to struggling to get more than one connection. I get a really good one connection, then my door closes and I can't get another connection. I've got to the stage, though, where I thought of giving it all up and I'm tired of the struggle and I know I shouldn't be struggling.
I get that, Kaza. I really do, because I've been there. I would get up. I went out with Jean and her friend at the time, when I was developing as a medium, and I would get up and I would give a really nice message off, and then nothing, absolutely nothing else would come through. And for me, the more how can I say that? The more you worry about it, and you'll start to shut your mind down. You really will, Kaza. And it's not that they're not there; it's just you panic, and once you panic, you put the shutters down, and they're there trying to get through, but you just won't be able to open up to it. So just stay calm, breathe. It will come. It will, honest, darling. It will.
It will. And I think Sarah's comment to the continuation of the previous conversation also adds a little bit of clarity to this as well. Sarah said, I've had to stop a couple of readings as I've had absolutely nothing in my memory banks to bring forward. Obviously have lived totally different lives. This is just one reason why we might start struggling in getting that information. And you're absolutely right. The more you get anxious about it, the less will come through. And this is because there are so many different aspects that can influence that connection. For example, let's use a TV as an analogy. There are times throughout the year when the weather stops the TV signal coming through. We call it atmospherics. You'll get a flashy image and you'll get the sound, or you'll get no sound and it will start going to a blue screen of what's it, and you'll get that little message, no signal these days. Once upon a time, it used to be that fuzzy, grey, snowy, you know, back in the days of non-digital. It would, the screen would start sloping across personal anxiousness, a lack of knowledge of the experiences and that personality that's coming through can make a difference. But big for me is our own personal fear of not being good enough. And I've got to say, I promised myself we'd have a gentle week and I wouldn't get on my high horse this week. Guess what? I've already broken that. One of the wonderful things about the pandemic is that it brought spiritualists together online. It built bigger communities, you know, for all the horror that happened in that time. One of the wonderful things was that we came together, got out there more, and certainly people came together in development and growth. But with more people coming together in a more public but closed environment, because you're only seeing a snapshot of that person's life. It's that postage stamp analogy. You are experiencing a snapshot of that person's life. So when you see someone working and see them developing and growing, you're not seeing that struggle behind the scenes. You're not seeing their moments when they're sitting there banging their head on the table saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. You're not seeing and experiencing that, because we all grow and develop at a different rate. And I think one of the things that modern spiritualism, in the sense of this technological advancement of spiritualism, doesn't help, is that we expect it in some ways to be a conveyor belt of development, and we can do it really, really quickly, and it builds up really, really quickly at a steady rate. It doesn't, it isn't, it's personal. And another thing to add to that, thank you, Tony, is our spirit being gentle after illness. Now, interestingly enough, Eunice has just said, is it just them backing off because you've been ill? I know for a fact she has.
Yeah.
She, behave yourself. Kaza has been ill. Kaza has been through the wars emotionally and physically. So they will let you recover of your own volition and go easy on you and say, there's the going easy, isn't there? And then there's the slow down. And I know you've experienced that one.
I absolutely have. I have, yeah. Back in 2017, I got blood clots in both of my lungs, and I was laid up in hospital, and I felt like I'd had limbs removed because there was nothing, no connection through spirit at all. And even recently, when my mental health's not been great, they just back off, and they just, it's like you get a big slap on the back of your head, like, we're telling you, pack it in, you know?
Yeah.
And they will, and it is scary because you think, will it ever come back? Will I ever be able to get back up on a rostrum and work? And I miss them. And what am I going to do? So, yeah, it is. And they know when you're not ready to work, Kaza. They really do. And Eunice, they do know. They will start to drip feed it back in as they feel you're getting stronger and back to where you were. So, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I know Kaza's situation, some of it anyway. And so, yeah, that would make perfect sense that they're just saying, whoa, no.
Hold up.
Yeah, not just yet, Absolutely. Not just yet.
But I have to admit, Lisa's analogy I love, and I'm going to expand upon it as well. Mediumship is like singing. The more you stress and panic with singing, your vocal cords will tighten up and you can't sing a note. If you panic and start worrying, you stop hearing voices with mediumship. And I'm going to add to that, if I may, as well, when it comes to being a professional singer, Yes, you should practice, do your chords every day, always keep exercising that muscle. But if you do a stint of a 12-night concert, and you're doing huge power ballads every night for 12 days, your voice will still go no matter how well you're good at singing and no matter how much you exercise it, because you will be overdoing it and overburdening it. And I think the important that thing we said about, experiences, one other thing that does tend to happen in this way of life is we become so involved because there's so much going on. We spend all of our time watching mediumship, watching debates, watching chats. We stop living, and we spend more time with spirit than we do with ourselves and our life and the living of it. And to quote Sarah's comment, we stop filling up our experience memory bank.
Yeah.
And so you have to get out there and smell the coffee and the leaves and the life that is lived, because life is as much a part of the process of mediumship as sitting and listening to mediums and working in circles and developing. And sometimes we can spend too much time actually working with spirit and not enough time actually living. There has to be that balance.
Absolutely. And the one thing spirit won't do, and this picks up a point that Sue Parry's just made about her and John, the one thing spirit won't let you do is they won't let you run away to the world of spirit to avoid your problems. If you're going out to churches, as I've done in my life, 3, 4, 5 times a week, and doing online services as well and different things, to escape from something I don't want to face up to, that again, they'll slap you on the back of the head and say, whoa, no, deal with this first, then we can come back to it. Oh, Sarah.
Yikes. I wondered who would say it.
Yeah.
You win the internet today, Sarah. Well done.
Yeah. So yeah, you do. And sometimes it's vice versa. You've got so much going on in your personal life and private life that you seriously don't have the time or the mental energy to connect with the world of spirit. And there was a period in my life where I'd done exactly that, and I had that much going on in my life. But I thought, no, I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to go and do this service. I'm going to go and do that service. And I'm going to go and do that service. And I was driving hours and hours to get to a church to do services. And I remember driving home and saying to Jean, I didn't enjoy that at all.
Yeah.
I know I could have done a better service than that. That was an embarrassment. And it was because my mind was in 15 different places when I was up on rostrum, and I wasn't giving it the time and energy that it deserved. So both sides of my life then suffered. And it does make a difference. It really does. And I do like Sarah's other comment about they are a fantastic employer and don't want you to work until you're on top form again.
Indeed. Enforced annual leave. I actually had an enforced annual leave, and I don't talk about it much, but perhaps I should. Especially in circle and development, when I'm working with people, helping them develop. I actually had about 5 years where I came off the platform and didn't do any public work at all. Yes, I still sat and spoke with my guides. I would write things down. I would communicate with spirit. I was still exercising those spirit muscles, but I didn't go and serve churches because I had burnt myself out. Like you, the 2 or 3 times a week, getting carried away. Not to mention I was doing a full-time job that was upwards of 90 hours a week sometimes. I would literally be getting up at 4 o'clock, and this was an average Sunday at one point for me. I would get up at 4. I would go to work for a 6 o'clock start. Sometimes on Sundays, actually, it was a 5 o'clock start. I would start at 5, finish at 1, 2 o'clock, sometimes 3, pushing it to 4 if there was a problem. I'd go home, get showered, get changed, get in the car, go and serve a church from about 7 o'clock. 7:30, I would do the service. I would finish about 9. We'd stand and have a chat. That was then 10. Start making way home 11, 12 o'clock. Back up at 4 the next morning. And it would become a vicious circle, and you'd want to keep pushing yourself to do more and more and more. But when you do that, you end up doing less.
You do.
And in actual fact, the only more you do is damage to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I had an enforced 5 years off. They literally would not let me do anything publicly for 5 years. But I tell you what, when I came back, I felt like I loved it again.
It should never feel like hard work. It should never feel like hard work. It should always feel like, and I will say, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I always say it's a privilege to do what we do. It really is a privilege. And when it stops feeling like a privilege and starts feeling like an industry, that's when I need to go. That's when it's time to pack it in, because it's not an industry. It's not a job. And I mean, we always say we work with spirit, but I mean it in the sense of we work alongside spirit. We work with their energy, not that we work for spirit, because it's not work. It's not work. It's a privilege. It's an honor to come here every Friday and to talk to you lovely people. And I know we're not giving messages off and things, but we're still doing spirit's work.
Absolutely.
Evelyn, recharging is always needed. Take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're no good to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I've got to say this, because that word work and industry, totally agree with you. And many of you will know that last July, not the July just gone, but the July before, I actually gave up full-time work to, live and work as a medium. And when people say to me, how's the new job going? My response is always, I haven't worked a day since I left work.
No.
Because it's a way of living, and I enjoy what I do, and it's not a burden and a chore. Yeah, sometimes you'll have a slow day and you'll be really tired and knackered, but I still enjoy it when I'm tired and knackered. Look, let's be honest with everyone. Tony, there are times that we have come here at 3:45 on a Friday afternoon, and we have felt rubbish. We felt as flat as a pancake. We haven't got a clue what we're going to talk about. You lovely people bring us up, and we always finish on a Friday happier and more uplifted and more energized, Cherry, than we started, because it's that contact with that spirit. It's that continual growth and enjoyment of being part of this experience and this journey and this exploration. So yeah, I haven't worked a single day since I gave up a full-time day job, because I love working with people. I love dealing with people. I love being with people. And this role that I have, and that's the word that I tend to use more now, this role that I have in my life is so liberating and pleasurable and joyful and again, that word, energizing. There's there are so many words that are bandied about employment. Work to live rather than live to work. And if you can do something that you love, you'll never work a day again in your life. And I very much feel like that, but I still get shut down. Nick, stop it, have a rest, live some. And you've got to find that we talk about karma being from an element of another religion. You've got to find that karmic balance, the yin and yang, doing the work of spirit and living at the same time. Booyah.
Absolutely. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people who are going at it hell for leather, out every night, 7 days a week, doing stuff during the day as well, and then they disappear. They disappear because they can't sustain it. Yeah, lots of absolutely brilliant comments coming through as well.
Yes, absolutely. Especially from my mother.
Yes, and he never stops talking. But we wouldn't have him any other way.
Yeah, you would. Picking up on some of those lovely comments, working with spirit should be enjoyable and pleasurable, not a chore. If it's a chore, you need to take some time for yourself and they'll come back when you're ready. I know you speak from personal experience in your development, Dawny, and I hope this is helping you at the very least, Kazza, in letting you know that you're not alone and that we've all been there. Any true medium will be forced to stop.
Yeah.
That's important.
It is. It is. Just picked up Michael's.
Yeah, I was actually just hovering over that as well. Look, there you go.
Yeah. I've, even doing what I do, I like to go and watch other mediums work because it's nice to hear other people's messages. It's nice to see other people getting that validation that that person can only be Auntie Gladys. That message could only have come from Auntie Gladys. Shush. Somebody's had the audacity to walk past our caravan.
Naughty people.
I don't think it's that you need more proof. I think it's just that you feel that connection once you know beyond a doubt that you have had that evidence. Then I think it's nice to see other people getting that enlightenment.
Yeah.
For me,
absolutely.
Anyway. No, personally, you don't need more proof, but it's nice to see other people get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties in beautifully and expands the conversation. To a couple of previous comments. The first one, just to tie over while Tony's dealing with the naughty people walking past. I hope you didn't poop yourself again, Kazza. That was the last time. I hope you managed to at least change them before this time. And hi, Joanne. Welcome. But this comment from Tim from earlier once again ties beautifully into the last and leads to the next. I think once it's been proven to you that your loved ones have survived the physical death and you begin to accept that reality of spirit world, then the beauty of spiritual philosophy has its importance. And that is a very, very prevalent for many people, even those that say, oh, I don't have any set philosophy. That expansion of their own, at the very least, within the bounds of that proof that they have seen, will continue to grow and develop.
Absolutely. And the philosophy, the spiritual philosophy, is the message that everybody in the church can take away from.
Yes, absolutely.
And Sarah, there's actually nothing better than to watch a good medium at work.
Yeah.
And I have the privilege of knowing quite a few really good mediums, and it's brilliant. Yeah.
And don't you think it's also very maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I find watching a medium work and seeing their growth and development and seeing the level of confidence and comfort as they grow individually is also another part of watching other mediums work, is to actually enjoy their successes and their work and their growth as an individual. You know, it's so important to enjoy each other's successes because we can learn from each other on that rather than, I mean, I know that there are some, and thankfully I've got to say they are mediums rather than working within the spiritual way of life per se, who've sat there and criticized other mediums that are doing a great job because they don't want them to be better than them. And that is an issue in this way of life. But to sit there and enjoy another medium work is telling of the quality of the individual watching.
I have experienced that a bit, and it's for me it's disrespectful to spirit, and it's disrespectful to mediums to do that, because when I joined this way of life, it was quite a few years ago, when it was the done thing that you sit in circle for 900 years, and then you may go to a development class for another 50 years if you need to, and then you might be able to go on a platform, and then you might be able to take a service on your own. And it's right. I just said to Spirit, right, fine, this is your journey. Let's go do what you want me to do. And I threw myself into it, and I allowed Spirit to take me on that journey. So I developed at the rate Spirit wanted me to. And oh, bless you, Evelyn, thank you. And you did get a lot of the, oh, but he's only been going to circle for 2 years, and he's only been, and I have actually been somewhere where there was a medium sat at the back of the church, another medium was up doing a demonstration, and they were mini-moking and pulling faces, and it was just so disrespectful to watch. One of them was even doing, there was a, behind the rostrum, there were two mediums up working, and there was a ballet bar on the front of the stage behind the rostrum.
Yeah.
And she was up doing pirouettes, and while the other medium was up working. And you think, no, that's disrespectful. It's very, very disrespectful. And I'm not saying that churches have to be serious places and mediums don't have to be serious up on a rostrum.
You've worked in Littleport. You know that we encourage to be naughty, but in that right way.
Yes.
In that right way.
Wearing rainbow tutus and running up and down to the bully team. Which is still on the top of the wardrobe in our spare bedroom, that tutu is.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have fun and upliftment and enjoyment without being to the detriment. Yeah, absolutely. Without being detrimental and disrespectful to other people working.
No.
This is the thing. People do look through rose-tinted spectacles at the past of spiritualism, but the history of spiritualism is the more things change, the more things stay the same, is a very old-fashioned saying, but it's so very, very true. Old spiritualism had its issues. When I see people who are developing and say, oh, I've been sitting in circle for 6 months and I still can't go out on the platform yet, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't have been allowed to, and whilst I don't believe that there should be a limit, it should be here we go, personal journey, and it should be at the time of the individual being ready, and any self-respecting circle leader will know when that is and encourage and push that forward. And I was very lucky, don't get me wrong, as much as we were enforced to take a time, I was lucky when that time came. It's right, okay, you're ready, get on with it, do this, do that. And whilst we wouldn't have had the fledglings evening until the whole circle was ready, the circle leader, Lynn, would come up to individuals and say, perhaps whilst you're out at the weekend, you can try this and practice on your friends and do this and the other to encourage that personal growth and development. Joanne's comment, there's no greater or lesser. We are all on a different section of our pathway. Rather than criticize, help. Booyah. It is not spiritual to bring ego in that way. And you absolutely. And there was another. Sarah. Everyone who works for Spirit are being allowed to work for Spirit. Spirit must believe in them and be working with them. or they wouldn't be doing what they are doing. Kaza, remember that comment. Spirit believe in you. We might not believe in ourselves, but spirit do. And I think we should always encourage and applaud and uplift each other, not sit there in judgment. You know, yes, sometimes as a chair you have to, you know, I'm fortunate I haven't had to do it very often. I've been very lucky. But sometimes as a chair you might have to encourage, or I mean, I sit there and send my thoughts out to mediums all the time, whether they need it or not, just to help them, because it's a compassionate thing to do. But but we must look after each other, not discourage each other. By the way, Nick, I went on platform last month. Wasn't as worried as I was. The healing worked. Yes, absolutely. And this is it. We should be applauding each other for giving it a go and pushing ourselves and advancing our experience. And I think the more we look after each other and encourage each other and help each other and big each other up from time to time, that's not encouraging ego. That's building confidence. There might be a fine line, but I think many mediums in this way of life are way behind that line and need pushing towards it more, of that level of confidence in their self and their connection with spirit. And, you know, to berate another medium so visibly and so harshly because you think you're better than them, that might not be what the congregation is sitting there thinking. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Shall I go back to that?
Yeah, please.
So yeah,
you did that last week.
Yeah. So Susan has just, if there is any news on Alan, and unfortunately there is, for those that didn't join us at the beginning or have missed the updates, sadly Alan passed away last Sunday, and he is now being uplifted and looked after and healed and giving strength and support by spirit, and as people down here we must give each other and Alan's friends and family that strength and support, because he's being looked after. He's okay now. He's being taken care of. We need, just in the same vein of what we've been talking about mediumship on a human level, it's now time for us to look after each other and ourselves within that same similar framework. So for those that don't know, there is that, and thank you for asking, Susan.
It what gets me, and I've been doing this now for 10 plus years, it's still hard. It's still hard to lose somebody, even though we know he's in the arms of those he loved and he's with spirit. It's still hard from us, from the human level.
Yeah. And this is why I get really, and I'm going to say a naughty, and I don't care. This is why I get really, really pissy when people say we're obsessed with death. We're not. We understand it. We are aware of it. And yes, to an extent, we deal with it. But we don't like it. We don't want it. We don't welcome it. We are obsessed. And this is going back, actually, getting a bit of help here. This goes back to that whole point about difficulties within mediumship. We are and should be obsessed with life, because it is the life that helps us to develop our mediumship, but it's also the life well lived that we must be focused on. And we are not obsessed with the dead or death. We just work with those ancestors. there's a very, very Native American phrase here. We must work with the knowledge of our ancestors to add, flourish, and encourage our own lives.
Yeah. And I did see somebody say in a philosophy, it's our job to, as spiritualists, to tell people they shouldn't grieve. BS. Because to grieve means you have loved.
Yes.
End of.
Yeah.
To grieve means you have loved. And it's the price we pay for having loved, be it a human, an animal, a fish, whatever it is. It's the price of loving that spirit. And it's, as spiritualists, it's our job to comfort them and to say.
And as I've said,
go on.
Oh, she's on form.
She is.
I dare anyone to say that to me. One of the things that I frequently say, and you know, because I believe it wholeheartedly, is the more it hurts, the more impact that person has had on our life. The more it hurts, the more we know that love flourishes. And the more it hurts, the more we know that love exists. Because if we didn't care, it wouldn't hurt. So that pain is a symbol of how much we live and how much we love and how much life matters.
Yep. And just to pick up on Kaz's point, I was told I should be over Sue's passing by now. That hurt. You never get over losing somebody. You learn to live with that gap in your life. You don't get over them, because that would be, I've said it before in this show, and I'll say it again, I've no doubt, that would be disrespectful to Suze to say, oh, she can't have mattered that much. She should have just be over it by now. No, I'm sorry, that boils my blood.
Balls.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Christmas breakdown. There you go. We've got to add. I totally agree with you. You know, I'll use my tooth as an analogy, right? Because everyone knows by now I've chipped my bloody tooth. I learned to deal with that gap, but the gap is still there. I don't hiss and I don't extend my S's anymore, because I've learned to deal with the fact that that gap is there, but that gap is still there. And occasionally, when I'm not concentrating, I will extend my hiss. I will extend my S's, because as much as I am absolutely able to deal with most of the time that gap being there, it's still there. And when I get distracted, I can't speak properly again.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's Daryl's 4 years down the line, and he says it comes in peaks and troughs. Absolutely. We lost a child 27 years ago, and there are times that comes back and hits me like a sledgehammer in the face. And it is. And to say to people you should be over that by now and getting on with your life is disrespectful to you as a person and to the person you've lost and loved. It's just wrong. And to quote my mum and everybody, my guest, if you ain't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
you know, and it's not helpful. And yes, it is ignorance of loss. And I've got to say, in one way, people who say like that, I feel sorry for them, because what have they missed in their life to be able to say that you can get over it that quick? You know, don't get me wrong. the different levels of relationship we have with people will have an impact on how strong that connection is, and therefore how much we grieve. But there are people in my life that I lost decades ago. It breaks my heart that I can actually say decades in my life. But I've lost people decades ago. It still hits me that they're gone sometimes, and it still catches me unawares, and it still hurts as much as the day we lost them to the world of spirit. You know, because that's what compassion is, my friends. Compassion hurts. But this is important. As much as compassion hurts, I would gladly experience that pain than to not experience the pain because I didn't have them in my life.
Exactly. That's just it. And Sarah nails it there when she says, you might have had more love in those few years than they've had in their lifetime, Kaza. Yep. 100%. I mean, love her or hate her, the Queen looked a shell of herself when she lost Philip.
Yeah.
And I did see somebody say, you can see the price she's paying for the years she had him. And
yes,
I bet if you asked her, sat in the Abbey by herself at the funeral, would she trade it in? She'd say no.
Amen. Amen.
And it's just what you've said. I will pay that price to have that love in my life and have those people in my life, because it's what we do. It's what we do. We look for that connection. And can you imagine how lonely it would be to just drift through life and not have known that and not experienced that? John's just put, he still misses his mum. It's been 10 years. I've been over to John's and given them readings from mum, and she's lovely. She's a real character, straight laced, straight John Bull, won't mess, and she is. And yeah, this is the joy we have as spiritualists, knowing that they are around and they're still here.
Yeah.
But you still miss that picking up the telephone and having a chat. You still miss that sitting and having a cup of tea and a bit of a cake and that hug. And, you know, yeah, they can drive you insane and really grind on you, but there's that joy as well in it. And it's a beautiful thing.
I'm being given to say, and this is directly coming from those that I work with, the price we pay for love is grief, but love pays far more dividends and interest than the cost of that grief.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard, but the thing I get from Spirit a lot is when they're talking about the rituals we have around their passings and the funerals and things, is it's a celebration of the life and the loves that we've had, is what they want, to celebrate that time we had together rather than a mourning of the passing. Yes, it's going to be sad. Yes, it's tragic, but it's a time to celebrate the life you've had together and the love that you've had together. And it's a lot of you are saying you've lost people and you still miss them. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Of course you do. And you should. You should, because if you didn't, then they didn't matter.
No, exactly.
And we know that they mattered. And we know that they mattered because of the hole that they leave. Yeah. I will just say, you've given me an idea, Kaz. Remind me of this on Monday. in the philosophy bit. When we sit in development, the way I work is we have like basically a 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on the day, just rant and discussion about practices and ways of working and philosophy and all other stuff. You've given me an idea. Mention this to me on Monday. But yeah, more to come. I might even add an extra chapter. But we do, the more we miss people, the more we know they mattered. But the joy of this way of life is that they are still around, not in the way we want them to be, but they are still able to give us a kick. As Mum said earlier, we can feel their feet in the bottom of the bed brushing against us from time to time. We can still hear their thoughts impacting us, and helping us grow as individuals. And one day, we pray it to be a long time in the future, we are reunited in a different form and in a different way. We'll never have that physical contact again, but that blending that we experience in the spiritual way of life can be just as fulfilling and sometimes more intimate than a physical connection. And when we all become energy again, we all do blend together in an ocean of love. And we are all droplets of water in an ocean of love. And we must remember that, that love endures longer than anything. What is built endures. What is grown endures. What is loved endures. And human beings do endure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, he does, Sarah.
Yes, online circles. I've got some during the daytime. I've got one that's coming up. Yes, Dawny, in the evenings. Hopefully it's going to be a Tuesday night starting very, very soon. So yeah, I do development classes online mostly. I do once a month workshops in the village. I'd make lunch. We're having soup and a roll this time.
Oh.
But thank you all so much for a really engaging conversation today. It's 5:30. Can you believe it?
I can't. I got to get something to eat before Michael's got a meeting at 7. We've got to pack because we've got to be home tomorrow to go and see the Rainbow Project. If anybody's around Rotherham, we will be at the Rainbow Project in Rotherponderne from 1 o'clock. I've no doubt we will, and we'll advertise it in the Spiritline Continue the Debate page.
It's banner time. There we go. You can continue the conversation by going to facebook.com/groups/2Revs, where you can continue the debate, and I'll share that information. And you can continue the debate yourselves. Enjoy the conversation. We will jump in. And yes, if you are up northerly, do support the Rainbow Project. They do some really, really great work up there. And it was a privilege to come and speak to the group, albeit online. Joanne, we wouldn't expect it to be anything other than a late arrival. We expect it. You surprise us sometimes by being on time. But, once again, Spirit knows what you need and they will bring you when you need it. So you don't need to hear me ranting about, certain things, certain weeks and, getting grumpy at the beginning like I do from time to time. And Evelyn, I look forward to it.
Yes, we do. We would love to meet you.
Yeah. But there we are. So thank you all. And again, Reverend Tony Swindles, I thank you for sharing your afternoon with us and with each other.
You. Yes. Thank you, everybody. And until we meet again, stay safe, everybody.
God bless. May the peace of the Great Spirit go with you all. But for now, it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from him. Bye.
Bye.